Hello everyone. Welcome to a Venture Cafe talk on COVID-19 and the Unhoused and how you can take action during these times and help out in a situation where there is a lot of need. So this talk is, directed for businesses and business leaders who are looking for creative ways to help our community and improve our local ecosystem. So this is going to be taking lessons that have been learned from helping 100 people facing homelessness, starting their own entrepreneurial ventures with Nano Lending, and then sort of going on to talk about what does COVID-19 mean for the unhoused, not only in terms of health, but also their efforts at economic empowerment. Okay, so a little bit about me. My name is Sri Jalati. I'm a high school junior at Parkway West High, and I am a student at Parkway Spark, which is a program for for students in the Parkway District, and it helps students get involved in their career. So whatever that career may be, there is a Spark branch for that, and it essentially allows those students to get experience in that field, in that career path ahead of time so that they're better prepared when they join the workforce or even before they go to college. So the Spark program that I am a part of is the incubator program. So this is a program where students learn to create their own businesses and start their own businesses. One thing that's really important about this program is that it teaches professional skills along the way. So you go to networking events, you learn all sorts of soft skills that a lot of students, when they come out of college, are still lacking because they've never had experience with it before. So as a student at Spark, I started Nano Lending, and I'm going to be talking about Nano Lending for now before the coronavirus pandemic struck the world. So if we're looking at the problem that I was looking at, there have been lots of advancements in technology, policy, and research, and yet poverty still looms large within our country today, despite the United States being one of the most economically developed nations in the world. It's important to remember that everyone has a chance of entering poverty. One great tool that I have used is a WashU professor actually made a tool that will predict the chances that you enter into poverty at least one time throughout your entire life. And the risks are significantly high for anyone. Um, and the really unfortunate thing is that many people who are in poverty or are unhoused have the skills necessary to exit their situation, and yet they just don't have the resources. And the only thing they are lacking is that original surge or original push in terms of their resources. So that's where Nano comes in. Nano is a billionth, or in a minute. And so Nano Lending is a social entrepreneurship initiative which lends money to the impoverished and unhoused at a 0% interest rate. And it's for those people in that situation to start an entrepreneurial venture and to become entrepreneurs, start their own business, and gain a sustainable source of income. So currently there are 102 entrepreneurs, 81 unhoused, and 21 youth-facing homelessness, aging from 18 to 24 years is that demographic essentially. And the loans are anywhere from, they can be anywhere from $50 up to $500. So in order for someone to get a loan from Nano Lending, they have to attend a workshop or have an existing business. And these workshops are essentially entrepreneurship workshops that are conducted at different shelters around the St. Louis area. And they essentially allow people who attend the workshop to gain an idea of, and to get a better idea of what entrepreneurship business they can start and how they can go about doing that. And it tells them how they can be a good entrepreneur. And a lot of the resources that I use in the workshop are resources that I have developed and used from the original Spark program that I am a part of. At the end of the workshop, if someone has an idea, all they have to really do is write up a business plan and making sure that it's detailed, making sure that their plan is specific, and making sure that it's plausible, they can get the loan. Now, it's important to remember that this loan that Nano Lending gives out is only equipment and merchandise, and it's not cash. So equipment or merchandise that can be used to start their own business. This could be in the form of an original shipment of clothing that they plan to flip, or a sewing machine, or a lawnmower. But Nano Lending never gives out actual cash in terms of the loan itself. So the repayment model is a bit different for Nano Lending compared to any other bank or any other, loaning system. So the loan agreement document specifically says that the loan should be repaid in good faith by helping other entrepreneurs with their equipment. So this is not legally binding, and there are no conditions or contingencies. So if you are unable to pay for any reason, there isn't going to be any penalty. The equipment's not going to be taken. Now, when Nano says by helping other entrepreneurs, the idea there is to start a pay it forward loan or a Nano chain. So the idea is that one person repays their loan in the form of giving someone else in the community their loan. So that person would then continue the chain, and the cycle continues to benefit more people throughout the community. So far, 15 people have repaid by helping others, meaning that they have repaid their loan by allowing someone else to have the same opportunity that they had. So the entire journey really started when Darius Buckner said, "If only I could start my own power washing business." And these words were said after he was laid off his old power washing job, and he was struggling as a single father of 2 daughters and struggling to raise his elderly mother. And this is where Nano Lending began. By giving him his power washer, his dream became a reality, and Nano Lending was born. So since then, the word has spread, and Nano was actually approached by many different people in shelters and in the who are impoverished, looking to start their own businesses, or continue their existing businesses that they had in place and grow those to where they could gain a sustainable source of income from it. So where is Nano today? Today, there are 102 loans given out, 81 to Unhoused, for a total amount of over $25,000 given out, and the average loan amount is about $250,000. I'm sorry, $250. So there have been 20 total entrepreneurship workshops conducted in 5 shelters in town, and business incubators have been started in 2 shelters. So in terms of the equipment that's been funded, this list includes, but is not limited to, lawnmowers, power washers, laptops, Chromebooks, painting equipment, car mechanic tools, mold treatment equipment, nail and other hair supplies, grill, catering equipment, sewing machines, jewelry kits, gardening tools, and more. And in terms of the shelters that have conducted workshops and have loans, City Hope, which is emergency shelters, Loaves and Fishes, which is a family shelter, Destiny Family and Shelter, Destiny Family Church and Shelter is a daytime shelter, Gateway 180 is a shelter for adults and families, and the Covenant House is a shelter for youth aged 18 to 24. So looking at our entrepreneurs in terms of the entrepreneurs that Nano Lending has helped develop and grow their businesses, we can start with Philip, who actually received a ice shaving machine, and he is selling snow cones now down in the downtown area. Currently his business is a little bit on hold due to the restrictions and due to the coronavirus. But before the pandemic, he was able to sell snow cones using his machine down in the downtown area. Veronica received a sewing machine and now makes clothes for babies. And she has been producing these clothes and actually selling them as well. And it's important to remember that this all started just because of a sewing machine. She had this idea for a while, and she was just never able to get through to it and never able to start it simply because she lacked that original equipment. But that's where Nano Lending was able to help her. And in reality, it's a lot on her as well, because she was able, to produce and start this clothing line. So Chef Kiki is a business that was started by Vanita. She was given a Chromebook and a grill, and now she is actually one of the most successful entrepreneurs that Nano Lending has helped. Within the first 2 months, her catering business generated $21,000 in revenue, and now she has a website and is catering. And I know that her business right now is actually not on hold. She has been able to continue catering. And actually, she has seen an increase because more people, are wanting to stay home and get their food home. So she has seen an increase in sales actually. So Dustin actually, his initial loan was merchandising. He flipped cutoff hoodies at his local gym. You can see some of the hoodies that he had purchased. And now he's actually continuing to flip them himself. Emmanuel was actually given a car mechanic tools kit so that he could repair, fix, and give some additional tuning to cars. And he is actually in the Covenant House, and he was able to he has already generated numerous revenue from various customers and clients who have brought in their car to him so that he can modify it. Ronnie was given a winch so that he could continue his hauling business, and he is actually a member at the Gateway 180. He was a member at the Gateway 180 shelter, but he has since been able to find housing. Margaret was actually given nail equipment, and her story is actually that she in the past she actually already had a nail business and a nail salon essentially, but she had her equipment stolen, and this was when she was actually becoming successful. She was growing her business, she was getting more clients, and she was generating more revenue, and it's almost the worst possible time she had her equipment stolen. But since then, Nano Lending has provided her with new equipment, and now she is working her way back up in terms of getting back to where she was, and she's getting close to that point where she is generating a sustainable source of income. Lamar was actually one of the first entrepreneurs of Nano Lending. He received a motorized lawnmower. He's a single parent with seizures, which is one of the reasons that he was actually never able to gain a sustainable place of employment. Every time he would go to a job, one of the largest factors in him not able to get a job was that his medical issue of seizures could be a liability on the business, and no one was willing to give him an opportunity. And he had always had the idea of starting his own lawn mowing business. And with the help of Nano and with his first lawnmower, he was able to make that dream come true. And now he's able to help out his children, and he's no longer held down by his health issues in terms of employment. Alvin got a business and licensing fee for his pelleting business, and he was recently donated a truck. So while everything came together, he is now able to essentially be part of the pelleting business, where he shifts wooden pellets from one source to another, and he's able to make a profit doing that. He actually has an LLC, as you can see on his truck right there. So one of the largest questions is, where are the funds coming from? So the initial funds were $3,000, which was a collection of prize money that I had from math contests and tutoring others for math contests, along with my various entrepreneurship ventures that I had delved into. Since then, we have had a Super Bowl raffle for fundraising and fundraising from family and friends. And local businesses, High Quartile and TechnoSmarts, have also donated. And now our total in terms of the funds that have been donated is over $23,000. So High Quartile is actually a business that helps with software development and places IT workers into employment, and is actually very recent and is growing very rapidly. And they were kind enough to donate to Nano Lending. Now, TechnoSmarts places nurses and helps with software development, IT, and places nurses into employment as well. And they also were very generous to donate to Nano Lending as well. Now, I did want to talk about some of the lessons that I had learned from this experience, because I think that it's very valuable, because there is such a large sample. It's 100 different entrepreneurs, each with their own situation, but some things that I found in common between all of them. So I think the first thing is that anyone can be affected by poverty, and anyone can drop into poverty. I met a teacher, a writer, an accountant, a manager, a business owner, a salesman, and many more people who were once doing well, but due to various conditions had become impoverished, and all they needed was that little push. And I think that it's important that everyone understands that there is always a risk that they also fall into this situation. I think another thing is that the assumption that the unhoused or people living in shelters don't have a job, that's also not accurate at all. In fact, many of them actually have jobs and even full-time jobs, and some of them even have college degrees. But the issue is that their job simply does not provide enough for them where they can leave and provide themselves their own housing, or their income is sufficient enough where they can fully support themselves. So despite having these skills and despite working a full-time job, they still lack some resources to get them to the point where they can become self-sufficient on a sustainable income source. And with the right resources and with hope and support, we can help people out of poverty. And poverty is essentially maze. And this is one of the most important things I learned is it's not simply just donations or other programs that are going to help someone get out of that situation, but is making sure that you show them that you support them, you believe in them, you trust in them. And along the way, you do have to help them. You help them along the way to make sure that they're on the right path, because many times the path out of poverty is made isn't easy. It's almost never easy, but with the right resources, with the right help, any people can achieve that goal. um, Another thing that I realized along the way is that there are a lack of resources and there is a lack of opportunity. So the biggest thing is that we still, as a community and as a nation, we still lack the appropriate resources to help one get themselves out of poverty. And the biggest thing is that everyone's needs are different. There isn't a one size fits all or one formula fits all situation. And that's one thing that I really learned throughout this process is after helping out over 100 entrepreneurs, each one had a different story. Each one had a different idea. There weren't any two people that were the same. And in that sense, each one needed something different to help them. Another thing that I sort of came across that I wasn't fully aware of is the high number of payday loan stores and title loan stores in certain neighborhoods. And the biggest thing that the worst part about these is that these are subject to extremely high interest rates. So even though these loans aren't checking for credit or aren't necessarily checking for repayability, their interest rates are immensely high, and sometimes they go up to 400%. And this is just wrong on multiple stages. Not only is it just ethically wrong to be profiting 400% of someone who is in a dire situation, but it also doesn't help that person, and it's more about just profit. It doesn't help the person in the situation who is receiving the loan to know and be bogged down by the idea every day that they're going to have to repay a loan that is essentially on 400% interest. And if their mind isn't able to fully be on the concept of being able to build their business and become successful, it's not going to help their chances of exiting impoverishedness or unhoused. And this creates a vicious cycle where people who are in poverty, who are looking to come out of it, are essentially being forced to go back into it almost because of these high interest rate loans. I think that one of the best examples of this is when four people from a shelter had an idea to start a garden and actually sell the fruits and vegetables that they grew on a wooden cart. And they could essentially push it around and sell to different people. The only issue was that they didn't have the funding or a wooden cart or a mobile cart that they could essentially sell these fruits and vegetables and this produce on. So they went to a payday loan store, and these are four people who are unhoused, and the payday loan essentially made them, if they wanted a loan, they would have had to pay a 50% interest rate on the loan. And that is simply something that is completely unacceptable. Not only because it's harmful for the people who are getting the loan, but it's ethically wrong, and it doesn't help their chances of actually growing a successful business. Because someone's mind should fully be on growing their business and getting a sustainable source of income instead of constantly having to think about how they can repay a loan. And it's important that even with a tiny investment, as low as $100, people got equipment material or merchandise, and they were able to start a recurrent income, and their lives were changed. It doesn't necessarily have to be a massive donation or a massive loan, but simply showing that you believe in them and giving them that initial push is often enough to help them. one of the biggest things that I actually was surprised by during this entire process is the number of people and the number of ways that people who were impoverished or unhoused, how they found a way to make money. Andre, who was someone who was unhoused, said entrepreneurship is rampant in this community. People experimented with several skills and avenues, and each and every single person I met had tried at least one, if not many different ventures, different entrepreneurial ventures to help them out and to help them gain a sustainable source of income. People had immense skills in sales because every day they made their entire livings based on selling items that they could find. Andre, the person who said that entrepreneurship is rampant in this community, lived almost day to day before Nano Lending on selling scrap metal that he found. And in that process, he had learned an immense skill, and he had gained an immense skill in sales that almost no other experience, no college course, no course at school could teach someone. Another thing is that the people who are actually impoverished and unhoused are still very creative. I think one assumption that can be made a lot and is actually incorrect is that, putting up with lots of different stress and different situations in life can actually hinder someone's creativity. But I found this completely not true. Um, Even though many regular businesses and common businesses like landscaping, flipping, cooking, catering, home services, or mowing lawns seemed of interest to many people, there were also many people who had novel and creative ideas and completely different ideas for businesses that one may not come across. As you can see here, such as Amami and Me Boutique, someone who used virtual online and used furniture and flipped it online. Someone created an advertising platform. Someone actually painted using pallets and turned them into simple furniture that people could buy. There was box purses, fur sandals, and a mobile nail salon. All of these ideas that people came up with and turned into a business. I think I've said this before, but money is not the complete solution. In fact, when I went to shelters, one of the biggest thing they asked for was not necessarily the resources or the money, but was how they could become an entrepreneur, and resources in terms of how they could grow a business and how they could create a business and make it into a sustainable source of income. And similar to how business mentors are incredibly important for the success of a startup, life mentors, cheerleaders, and people who are encouraging and supporting them through emotional perseverance in hard times is also very important for anyone to succeed, especially those who are in a bad situation. So I think that through my fundraising journey as a high schooler, I've learned a lot about fundraising. I think that the first thing that I learned is that everything is a community effort, especially with Nano Lending. Nano is, thankful to all the generous donors without whom Nano wouldn't have touched the lives of so many. Um, and even then, I think that all the fundraising activities were valuable. I had talked about a Super Bowl raffle that I conducted, and while it wasn't necessarily the most something that generated the most amount of funding for the program, it was very valuable in that it generated attention for Nano, and it allowed others who didn't necessarily have money that they could donate. It allowed them to become a part of Nano, and since then, more people have become part of Nano, such as mentors and students and friends who were trying to get involved with something like this and help out others and simply didn't know a means. And now, after a fundraising effort, they knew about Nano and have become involved in Nano, such as coming and helping at workshops or mentoring some of these entrepreneurs. I think the biggest thing is one example of the Nano chain that was created is Darius, who I had talked about, who received the first power washer. Exactly 1 year later, he actually has contracts to power wash 5 local restaurants and their businesses and their buildings. So with that success, Darius had actually generated enough revenue where he was comfortable being able to pay back. So he actually paid it forward to Regina, who he knew and who now has her own home health agency. So with that loan, she was able to purchase a computer so that she could better organize and create her home health agency. And now Regina is working on paying forward to one of her friends. And I am so thankful and grateful to be living in such a giving and caring community where something like this, something like Nano Lending is even possible. And this is a video of Darius.
Nervous because I've always had this dream to have my own business, and it's like when you're about to take a leap of faith and you get close to taking that leap, you kind of get skittish, and that's where I'm right now because it's going so fast, so quick, and I appreciate you guys helping me. I just never thought it would be this fast. So, like you were telling me that you have a mentor program and you have some other handouts that I could, you know, and as long as I do something about the business every day, the more I put into the business, the more I'll get out of the business.
So with that, that brings us to the last section of this talk, which is a clash of two crises. There is an existing homeless crisis and a housing crisis within our country, but now there is another crisis with COVID-19 and the pandemic that is the coronavirus. And now there is a bigger issue in when both of these clash and the massive amounts of problems and hazards that it can create. So in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, over 3 million people have been infected worldwide, and there have been over 200,000 deaths worldwide. And many people are now in the United States staying home. Obviously, some places are easing up on their lockdowns and quarantines, but there are still massive regions and many people in the United States who are staying home as much as possible in order to stay safe from the coronavirus and in order to help others stay safe as well. Now, the unhoused crisis also has existed even before the coronavirus. So in 2018, HUD alleges that there are around 553,000 homeless people in the US on any given night, or 0.17% of the population. And that is a very large amount, and that is something that is completely unacceptable, simply because of the fact that we live in one of the most economically developed nations in the entire world. So there should not be 500,000 people each night going without shelter. And I do want to say that I love the concern and attention we are getting from the government and from our community. And I think that we should be able to leverage this during this time, the attention that is being given to these people to allow them to stay safe. I think that we should use that and essentially continue that momentum even past the coronavirus crisis to help people who are in unhoused situations, to help them out of that situation in the best way possible. So now that brings us to a clash. Social distancing is difficult in shelters and less people in shelters to maintain 6 feet between cots. So essentially, not only are shelters packed with people, they are very dense, simply because there are a lot of people who are trying to gain shelter in a small area. Now, there are some shelters that do have rooms, but there are also lots of, in any case, even if the shelter has rooms, doesn't have rooms, or everyone sleeps in one large area, the fact is that it is difficult to socially distance, meaning that things like the coronavirus or maybe any future pandemic will become an issue for them. Now, let's say a shelter did want to keep everyone safe, this would mean that they would have to maintain 6 feet between cots and beds. Now, the issue here is that in order to do that, they would have to reduce the number of people that are staying in the shelter. So now there's an issue where more people are seeking shelters, and new buildings and emergency shelters are being set up rapidly, but the need for a dedicated space to quarantine those that may fall sick is also needed as well. So the housing situation right now and the shelter situation is in a dire condition because of the coronavirus and already existing problems. So this is where I wanted to talk about what Nano Lending has been doing during this pandemic to help out. So Nano Lending started COVID-19 relief for the unhoused. So the main supplies donated with these funds are sewing machines, sewer kits, fabric, elastic for face masks. So the main thing is that people in shelters have been given a loan and a sewing machine and fabric so that they can essentially sew face masks for the entire shelter. And along with any additional face masks that they sew, the Nano Lending will try to help them sell it so that they can gain a sustainable source of income. Other supplies that have been provided to shelters are hand soaps for frequent hand washing and non-touch thermometers so that the temperatures of residents can be seen, and we can start to screen for COVID-19 within shelters, and we can help out those who are in those shelters stay safe. So in terms of providing sewing machines and fabrics and masks to shelters, COVID-19 Relief for the Unhoused has donated 5 sewing machines to 3 shelters in town who, along with volunteers, have collectively made 1,300 masks, which have been donated to provide residents at their own, to provide safety to residents at their own shelters. And then those masks are provided to local hospitals if needed and other essential workforce. And I think that it's a big thing that people, even during this time, learn a life skill, because sewing is something that can be made into a source of income. They can make it into a business. And I think learning this skill now can be important for many later on. So this is Robert, who is actually the first person to receive a sewing machine and actually has been sewing masks. And even after all his shelter, all the shelters in City Hope, which is a group of shelters in the St. Louis area, which he stays in, even after all those shelters received face masks, he has continued to sew, and it's really inspiring.
Okay. Well, it has been a joy making masks for all the homeless and people that need them as well. And, you know, thank you for giving the sewing machine to City Hub, you know. So it has been great.
So cloth masks for the unhoused. Over 1,300 cloth face masks have been donated to encampments on Market Street through NLEC, 4 shelters under the City Hope, or St. Louis City Hope. That's a group of shelters. The Covenant House in Missouri, which is the youth shelter, the Biddle House, which is a men's shelter, the Salvation Army Family Haven, which is a family shelter, St. Louis Crisis Nursery, which is an emergency shelter for kids, the FSM, Franciscan Sisters of Mary, the Dearborg's Retail Grocery Store has actually received cloth face masks, and if you go to this one, you can actually see the workers wearing these face masks. Butterfly Haven, which is serving the needs of foster families, Nightingale Healthcare Agency, and healthcare providers at SSM and select facilities have all received cloth face masks to help their residents, workers, employees, for them to stay safe from this coronavirus and to help slow the spread of this coronavirus. So I think that while the coronavirus has, forced many people to stay inside, which is hard for many people who are working a job, it also allows for new entrepreneurs to start their businesses, and it can actually help existing businesses pivot to become more successful. So during this time, Nano Lending has been conducting online workshops and follow-ups at the Covenant House, and has encouraged online ventures and sales such as food businesses, delivery businesses, and making hand sanitizers and masks, and has continued to give loans out so that people can pursue these businesses even during a time of crisis like the current coronavirus pandemic. So in previously, entrepreneurship workshops that Nano Lending conducted were all in person at the shelter. However, Nano Lending has continued to do workshops online through Zoom. So there have been a couple of different workshops now. It's not strictly actually anymore entrepreneurship. So there was a COVID-19 health awareness session to educate people at shelters on how they can stay safe from it and how they can help others stay safe as well. There have been mental health sessions during these times, and there have been workshops to help pivot existing businesses that have already been started, to help them pivot during this time into making sure that they can continue to generate revenue and continue to survive through a dire situation that is the coronavirus. And we have also been conducting workshops on computer literacy, including the MIT App Inventor courses, which is meant for novices in the app development area, but it's important that, and it's really helpful for those who are trying to gain a skill and have an idea for an app in the future. So this brings us to our last section of what can you do? How can local businesses and business leaders be a part of the movement to help the unhoused? So if the first thing is that companies are investing in their communities, it's important to remember that this is not necessarily just a donation, and it will come back to help the company or the business in the future as well. It's known as corporate social responsibility, the idea of businesses giving to help their community and to help the people in their community. So according to Giving, 5 business benefits of corporate philanthropy include, the first thing is that employee engagement actually increases when corporations, businesses, even small businesses decide to engage um, in social initiatives, and decide to take up social movements. Not only that, but improves the brand's awareness and the reputation around the community, which is always great, so that more people are, inclined to buy, more people are inclined to go to the business. In turn, that actually will increase sales. Along with that, it actually attracts top talent, which I will get to in a second, but it allows more people to know your business. And by participating in social initiatives and giving back to the community, it allows more people with more skills to want to come and work for your business, and whatever magnitude of a business that may be. And finally, there will be tax deductions the more if you participate in these social initiatives for the business. So examples of giving. So Google's community programs, 5 of them are listed here. So the first is Bay Area Giving, which is supporting local nonprofits to strengthen the community. And Google has given over $60 million to Bay Area Giving over the past 3 years. Google also started Code for America, which is an effort to provide better technological support for governments that are slow to embrace technology. And then they've also started Roberta, which is developing technology to program and control robots using a smartphone app. And Google donated more than 50,000 Raspberry Pis during their programming education gathering. And Google's grant of $1 million in Raspberry Pi was actually another initiative that they took on, in a sense, to give an inexpensive microcomputers that are essentially just the size of a credit card to 15,000 UK children who show exceptional enthusiasm for computer science, so that they can better promote the learning of coding, computer science, and can allow these students to further learn. So Google obviously is a very large corporation. It is international, and it is one of the largest businesses and corporations in the nation. So what about small businesses? Philanthropy and social involvement can be for as big as a company like Google, but can also be for any business, even just a one-person entrepreneurship business. The first thing is that it puts employees on your side. So for whatever the magnitude of a business you may be running, most millennial workers highly prioritize workplace cultures. In fact, 76% of Gen Z respondents said they have purchased or would consider purchasing from a brand based on the issues that the company has supported. And 60% of candidates cite a company's mission and values as a prominent reason for actually interviewing with the company. And not only that, but it helps you invest in local businesses within your community, which in turn will help your business as well. So no matter how large of a business you're running, by delving into social initiative and doing social good, you're actually essentially making an investment into your community. And beyond that, it helps develop new skills for companies and employees. So if you're doing something similar to Code of America, but on a smaller scale for your community, it allows people, potentially new employees in the future, to become more skilled, and then once again can come back and help your business as well. And the bigger thing is, overall, it gives a company a sense of a bigger purpose. Obviously, a company needs to make money, and a business do need to make money. But the bigger purpose behind the company can be better identified and can be made when social initiatives are taken upon by that business. So examples of other companies that are doing social good: Warby Parker, through their Buy a Pair, Give a Pair program, Warby Parker actually makes a monthly donation to their nonprofit partners to essentially help out in developing countries. So Patagonia, which is an outdoor apparel brand, only tailored clothes, they have a worn wear program where they encourage fixing and repairing essentially old clothing, so that they can teach the community to sew and make that into new clothing. And Trader Joe's are not only fighting food wastage, but also helping the community. So Trader Joe's is able to write off donations as a tax break, and also help out the community and people. So it's a win-win situation for everyone involved. which begs the question, why don't all grocery stores donate their food? So this brings us to what you can do. I think there are a lot of options for everyone during this time to take up something, especially during this time, to take up something to help out in the current situation. So the first option is to essentially adopt a shelter. So City Hope, St. Louis City Hope now has 7 shelters in the St. Louis area, and each one has anywhere from 20 to 60 residents. Now, the city of St. Louis budgets around $40 a person. However, it costs a shelter around $65 per person to provide the necessary care. So there is a deficit and a difference of about $25 per person that shelters rely on the community to be able to help provide them. Now, part of business incubators at shelters, you can become a part of those incubators and mentor entrepreneurs and conduct workshops. Beyond this, you can provide apprenticeship and employment at your business. You can also incentivize employee volunteer hours and donations and provide matching services. Matching services are actually very helpful in terms of allowing people who have an extra amount of food or an extra amount of toiletry or essential equipment during this time to be able to get that to shelters and people who need it. Self-sustainability projects are also very helpful. Vegetable gardens around shelters have become common these days because shelters have been trying to become more self-sustainable, and helping out those projects in any way is a great help. And the bigger thing is help launch a social enterprise. So what is a social enterprise? The concept of a social enterprise was started by Muhammad Yunus, who was also the founder of microfinance and Grameen Bank. He initiated the concept of a group of impoverished and or homeless should start their own enterprise. So the idea is that you can see a couple of examples on the screen, but the idea is that people around the community come together to start their own business. And as a group, they can build up a business that is much stronger than each one of them could have individually created. And so the brand and the entrepreneurship and the business that they create all together can become something sustainable and successful that can provide a sustainable source of income for each and every one of them, and overall uplift the entire community instead of just one person. So that brings us to your thoughts and questions. I see that we have gone to our allotted time of 5:45, but if anyone has questions, feel free to ask them now.